Welcome back. The South African Communist Party and the Hani family have vowed to oppose the Constitutional Court application by Chris Hani's killer, Janusz Walus. For more information and more on the story, let's cross live to my colleague Natasha Phiri, who was on the story. Natasha, welcome to On Point. We've just seen that briefing held by the Hani family. What have they been telling us?
Well, very good afternoon to you, Diab, and of course to our SABC viewers as well. A very emotional Mayor Hani, speaking to members of the media here after that application at the Constitutional Court by Janusz Walus versus the Minister of Justice and Correctional Services, Mr. Ronald Lamula. And of course, Mayor Hani saying that she will never forgive Janusz Walus for the crimes that he committed in 1993. Also refuting the fact that, Walus had said that he had rendered an apology to the Hani family and to the SACP, which was his political home, saying that that process never even happened. But of course, to talk to us more about this, I'm joined by the SACP's spokesperson, Dr. Alex Mashilo. Thank you so much for your time. I mean, we heard proceedings. Clearly, the SACP seems to be satisfied by the heads of argument that was actually made by the advocate Skakani. But I mean, also clarifying issues to the media, saying that Walus did not apologize to the family, and he's only doing this because he wants parole, as he's been in prison for almost 29 years.
Definitely. We are quite satisfied with the heads of arguments presented on behalf of the SACP and the Hani family by Advocate Moses Skakani SC. That is our case. We really hope that the case will go very well. There are things such as the so-called apology. In our view, there is no apology. There are things such as the so-called remorse. In our view, there is no remorse. Janusz Walus is an unrepentant assassin. An assassin is driven by an ideological motive. You kill a person simply because you do not agree with that person. And as the sentencing judgment says it, that should be discouraged. Otherwise, we will not have democracy. So they were fighting against the very foundation of our democracy. The so-called apology and all other things were just done really to try and attract parole. We are opposed to those things. Even in the court of law here, they say that they are apologizing. They are telling the court of law, if I have done something wrong to you, I come to you to apologize, and I do so sincerely. So in this case, there is absolutely nothing. In fact, when we were doing the 20th commemoration of Chris Hani's assassination, we received a letter from Janusz Walus' legal team about the so-called attorneys. And our office of the First Deputy General Secretary stated to them that Comrade Dimpo Hani was in Cuba, and upon return, the process will unfold. That was just done so that when the case is heard in the court of law, in a few moments later, that letter will be presented there. There was just no process at all. This is a pretension to attract parole. We don't accept pretensions. We accept a G9 process. And as Dimpo Hani just said today, there is no way you can forgive such a person while there has been no justice in this case. The murder weapon that they used to take the life of Comrade Chris Hani and prevent our transition to democracy was taken from military armory. No South African today can stand and say, this is the person who took that murder weapon from the military armory. To the extent there were other people involved in the chain of activities leading to the assassination who were never held to account. Clearly, no one can claim that there was justice in this case, and no one can claim that the assassin expresses remorse. That is why, in fact, he was denied amnesty by the Truth and Reconciliation Commission, because clearly they did not make full disclosure of the truth.
I mean, Mr. Walus has been applying for parole since 2011. Of course, it's been denied time and time again. We heard his advocate, Mr. Duplessis, saying that the ConCourt is better placed to actually grant this order rather than the Minister of Justice, because the Minister of Justice and the previous Ministers of Justice have been under political pressure, as because they belong to the ANC, which is a tripartite alliance member.
He is arguing a political statement. Put it differently, he says that if the political party governing South Africa was their political party, Janusz Walus would have been granted parole. Now that this is not their political party, they are approaching the Constitutional Court, the very court that Janusz Walus did not want when he carried out the assassination of Comrade Chris Hani. It is nonsense what he said. As our senior advocate said, that was just a speculation backed by nothing. He didn't present any evidence to the Constitutional Court. He just said because these ministers come from the ANC, which is a partner in the tripartite alliance comprising of the SACP and COSATU, therefore they cannot make a decision. There are people who were paroled in this country who participated in crimes that were committed during apartheid time. They were paroled when these were the ministers. He did not evaluate his argument. He has to retreat and think again. We do not accept that argument. There are the facts of law here, and the law is applied taking into account all the surrounding circumstances. He has to appreciate that.
Lastly, Dr. Mashilo, the matter has, judgment has been reserved in the matter, and Medimpo and Tatemai Mapaile have been reiterating that they want justice to be served in this matter. Do you think that it will be?
That there is justice served in this matter. Every single person who was involved in the chain of events leading to the assassination of Chris Hani will be held accountable. That will include the person who during apartheid times gained access to military armory, took the murder weapon that was ultimately used by Janusz Walus to kill or assassinate Chris Hani in cold blood. The Constitutional Court will have to be very careful in making the judgment, because in this society, we've got the doctrine of the separation of powers. There are certain decisions that, in terms of our law, can only be made by the executive. Certain decisions can only be made by the legislature, being parliament, and certain decisions can only be made by the judiciary. So that is why we argued against substitution and said that in terms of the law, as our senior advocate said, there has to be exceptional circumstances. Even under those circumstances, it would be better to revert the matter back to the minister to apply his mind again. By the way, the minister, in making the decision, indicated that the prisoner has to be profiled with all the details brought back to him for a fresh consideration. The minister has already given that assurance. For where we stand as the SACP, we want the truth but nothing, and we want everybody who was involved, who had the knowledge of this assassination before it was carried out, and who was involved in the chain of events leading to it, to be held accountable. Until then, there is no way we can go out and say that justice has been served. It will even be irrelevant to consider whether you can forgive a person who used a murder weapon taken from military armory without disclosing to the Truth and Reconciliation Commission, to the courts, who took the murder weapon for him, because assassinating Chris Hani was the destination for that weapon.
Thank you so much for your time, Dr. Mashilo. Of course, Diabo, the SACP and the Hani family calling for accountability, and this is almost 27 years after the assassination of the SACP leader, the late Chris Hani. And of course, like I've mentioned before, that judgment has been reserved on this matter. But of course, this is a matter that, as SABC News, we will be following up very closely. With that said, it's back to you in studio.
Thank you so much to my colleague Natasha Phiri for the update.